Hi there, my name's Erin Fowler. I am a climate and social activist, and I'm also an environmental and feminist geographer from Scotland. So today I'm involved with the Climate Coalition's Great Big Green Week, joining their Fight That Unites campaign for Women for Wednesdays to talk about how women and girls are disproportionately impacted by the climate crisis, how gender inequalities can limit their abilities to get involved with climate action, and also trying to emphasise the very active roles that women are taking to overcome this and be a part of climate action. Um, at first, I guess I have to apologise. Videos aren't like a natural thing for me to do. I'm a little bit camera shy, and I've also written up some notes that are over here. When I placed my phone and laptop together, the humming from my laptop just kind of interfered with the sound of the video. So I'm really sorry. I'm often going to be looking this way, but hopefully the video is still good and you enjoy it anyway. So without further ado, I guess I'll just get started. So there is no doubt that the climate crisis is happening across the globe, and the impacts of it can be felt across the globe. So again, I'm from Scotland, and in Scotland, we more recently we've been experiencing higher rates and intensity of flooding. And this has devastated so many communities, especially in rural areas where services are more difficult to access due to poor public transport links that are often rendered unusable in times of flooding. And in fact, this is something you can see happening across the country, with train lines and roads becoming flooded in major cities, so it cancels trains and it causes drivers to have to drive through some quite dangerous conditions. So my hometown is a relatively small city in Scotland called Perth, and Perth is home to the largest river, in Scotland, called the River Tay, and this floods quite frequently, and it's had some really large scale floods within my lifetime, and I'm only 22. And the river flows right through the heart of the city, so when it floods, it causes major disruptions, and it can be really devastating for local communities and local businesses, especially if you don't have that money to kind of recover. So yeah, it can be a huge issue, and it's just set to become more of an issue that we'll have to deal with more, probably in the near present and future. So coastal erosion is also a huge issue in the UK more generally, and one that is set to increase with climate change. So I used to work as an intern researching climate change adaptation windows with the University of Glasgow, and I was shocked to learn how serious of an issue coastal erosion is. So many coastal communities across UK coastlines are at risk of being lost to the sea, with either parts of the land literally falling into the sea, or through coastal flooding, or of course through extreme weather events, so like major storms and things. So then with that means that kind of homes, businesses and communities are really at risk of being lost, and also heritage within these local areas. And this is kind of made worse by the fact that I guess we usually think of coastal areas as touristy spots. A lot of people in the UK have second homes there, but coastal communities actually have really high rates of poverty, and so then these people are more vulnerable because they're less likely to be able to respond to problems when they occur. So again, this is another major issue. And I guess this isn't something that's commonly associated with Scotland and the UK in general, but believe it or not, temperatures here are rising, and we now experience a lot of heat waves. So in cities, this can become unbearable, as our buildings are not built to, our buildings are built to keep heat in. So because we're not a typically very warm country, and cities themselves become heat islands with all of the concrete roads and pavements and buildings. So this can heat up even more. And in rural areas, we're seeing that this is starting to cause a lot of wildfires. So apparently since 2010 there's been a 30% rise in wildfires just in Scotland, um, which is huge. And this can, really devastate local ecosystems, as well as harming communities and livelihoods. Um, so I guess it's worth stressing Scotland is in a very privileged geographic location. Um, so we haven't really seen extreme climate events that we've seen elsewhere in the world, such as powerful hurricanes in the Caribbean, or wildfires in Australia or in Turkey. So we've not yet experienced any of these things on a large scale like that, or at least I haven't experienced anything personally. But that's not to say that things won't become worse in the future, and of course they are predicted to become more intense and to occur more frequently. So how do we actually work to address this and to combat this? So as an individual, I've been involved with climate activism in Scotland since I was 16 years old. I've helped to push organisations and the Scottish Government to listen to youth perspectives and to emphasise that the climate crisis really is an issue that young people care about and that young people want to be involved in and to help address. More recently, I just finished my master's degree in a sustainability course, which was called Earth Futures. And as I said before, I specialise in environmental and feminist geography. So I have conducted research into the involvement of women in climate action in Scottish cities. And I hope to develop this into a piece of work that can help to inform the future of climate action to try and make it more inclusive. Cities play a pivotal role in our efforts to combat the climate crisis. But they are also areas where gender inequalities materialise, and ultimately that then shapes the lives that women lead in cities, and this does impact women's ability to take part in climate action within cities. So, for example, active travel and the conservation of green spaces are a huge aspect of climate action plans in cities. But what these plans often fail to include is how less women participate in active travel or use their local green spaces due to safety concerns. So 97% of women have experienced some form of sexual harassment within the city. And so this obviously impacts how they use the city, from the areas they walk in, spaces they use, the times of day that they go out in. If cities are serious about accelerating climate action and ensuring that all communities can get involved, then these concerns need to be addressed within climate action plans. Women have to be included in the development of these climate action plans so that these concerns can be addressed and so that more women can be encouraged and feel empowered to take part in active travel, in green space, conservation and use, and other forms of climate action that occur in the city. So, by doing that, that would then mean that women would be able to kind of go around their city more easily and hopefully feel more safe. And we have a responsibility to ensure that all citizens feel empowered to take part in climate action, and embedding ways in which we can address gender inequalities would help to ensure that women do feel empowered. So some people might wonder, what's the point of Women for Wednesdays? What's the point in talking about how women are included in climate action? And I think it's really important to emphasise the very active roles that women already play to combat the crisis. And hopefully this can kind of be used to infer, what could happen if women had more involvement. So research suggests that women typically care more about the climate crisis, and they're more likely to make environmentally friendly choices. such as to become sustainable consumers through buying less meat or buying more locally produced products. Youth activism is also dominated by women. So three really influential women in the youth climate movement just now is Vanessa Natic from Uganda, Greta Thunberg in Sweden, and Michaela Loach, who's based in Scotland. I really hope I've been able to pronounce everyone's name okay. So of course there are so many more really inspirational women in the climate activism movement, but these are just three of them that are kind of spearheading it at the moment. And I really encourage you, they're all pretty active on social media. I really encourage you to kind of learn more about them, support what they're doing, and find out more ways that you can get involved, because they all kind of talk about environmental issues and social issues that mean a lot to them, and working towards things like that can help make sure that the planet is a better place for everybody. And for me personally, so again, I tend to focus on what women are doing in cities, and they tend to dominate urban greening movements. So by that I mean conserving urban green spaces, making new urban green spaces, urban gardening and farming. So this not only helps to address the climate crisis by ensuring that ecosystems are protected, encouraging more biodiversity within cities, because of course the climate crisis is not only a climate crisis, it is also an ecological crisis. But they also help to improve air quality, and they encourage more women and urban communities in general to spend time in nature, which does wonders for your physical and mental health. Women are also working hard to encourage other women to take up sustainable modes of transport, like active travel, and they're working hard within local governments and climate action organisations to improve the inclusivity of climate action. So research in the past has shown that women-led climate action schemes do tend to be a bit more inclusive, and they also tend to work to increase the diversity of teams working on these plans. So not only does women-led climate action tend to be more inclusive, but it also tends to try and address other social issues, such as poverty. And so this is something that we desperately need to see more of across the globe. So obviously getting more women involved in climate action would have, amazing benefits, and particularly for the UK. So I guess linking it back to the Fight That Unites campaign, kind of what would I like to see governments and organisations do to tackle climate change and address gender inequalities, and what do I think you guys should do in kind of putting pressure on the UK government and organisations to kind of push for. I think, and I'm sure a lot of people will feel like this too, we've seen and heard a lot of commitments from countries around the world pledging to combat the climate crisis, but what we haven't really seen is action. And especially as the UK will be hosting COP26 in a matter of weeks, I would like to see the UK government start to take environmental issues more seriously. I think both the government and organisations have the responsibility to be encouraging and empowering communities to become involved by communicating the climate crisis in an inclusive way. So by that I mean actually making it relevant to the communities that they're wanting to get involved within all these projects, and buying into various different kind of climate friendly schemes and things. I think, and just by doing that, just making it more accessible. A really common criticism of the climate movement is how exclusive it is, and I'm really passionate about trying to change this. And a huge part of this boils down to representation. Do people feel able to relate to the teams communicating climate change issues to them, and do they feel like their views and their concerns are taken seriously? Do they even feel confident to bring things up in the first place? do they feel like there are safe spaces where they can go and ask questions about the climate crisis if they might not know very much on it? This is so important. This is like such a good foundation that we have to set, that we haven't yet sat in order to kind of build climate action upon. Kind of if we look at leadership positions, there's still such a big gender imbalance within top positions in companies and organisations. And this often means that then women aren't even able to be at the table to talk about what's relevant to them. And as COP26 is coming up, there's been a huge campaign called She Changes Climate, which is something else I really recommend you guys check out. They're basically trying to raise awareness about how the COP26 leadership team is not gender balanced, and to put pressure on the UK government, including the COP26 president, Alok Sharma, to change this. I think the very fact that this campaign is even needed speaks volumes for the lack of consideration gender inequality is given within climate action. And I really hope that this doesn't mean that the actual event itself will be as exclusive. And then building on this, conversations around gender balances and the representation of women often seem to bypass diversity, particularly in the UK. And this is something that really needs to change. The climate movement is extremely white. It's typically, I don't know, I guess it has a lot of middle class people in it, and this kind of, it's been acknowledged by so many people, and it means that women of colour are often severely underrepresented. But why hasn't this yet been acted on? So I would like to see action around that. There will be a diverse range of representation at COP26, and I really hope that this is something that can improve in the future, because it desperately needs to be improved. I would also like to see the UK government work more towards a just transition. So by that I mean decreasing our use of fossil fuels and our kind of reliance on them, and investing in different renewable technologies in a way that ensures nobody working within the oil and gas industry is left unemployed. I think that this transition also needs to ensure that we work hard to encourage women and girls to go into science and engineering. But I would also like to see this transition learn to value the importance of low carbon sectors that already play quite a big part in tackling the climate crisis. And women do tend to dominate these. So if we look at sectors such as the care sector, and this, because they're low carbon, they already play such a pivotal part in the fight against climate change, but they also offer very critical jobs. They care for vulnerable people. I guess the importance of that has been emphasised so much because of the pandemic, and we really have to make sure that these low carbon roles are valued and are included within the plans that we make for climate action, and then I guess finally I would like the UK government to take unprecedented action to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees, but I would also like to see them take climate adaptation more seriously. Of course, we need countries around the globe to fully understand the impacts. We need countries around the globe to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions, but we also need them to fully understand the impacts of climate change and to work to prepare for that, to improve resilience and to protect vulnerable communities. Women are often the first impacted, and they are the last to be consulted. So I really hope that future action taken will work to acknowledge this. So a lot of this is included in the Fight That Unites declaration that you can go ahead and sign. And you can also tweet your MP to encourage them to say how committed they are to tackling the climate crisis and social issues like gender inequality. Obviously, today is all about how women are disproportionately impacted by the climate crisis, and I really hope that you don't go away feeling that women are solely victims. Women honestly can play a very active role in combating the climate crisis. But, for that to be kind of really taken advantage of, and for as many benefits of that to be taken, work seriously has to go into addressing gender inequality, and climate action can do both. I think that's the really brilliant thing about climate action, is that it also works to combat kind of other social issues as well. I mean, you kind of can't have climate justice without social justice. They come together. So yeah, I really hope this has been informative, and that you found it inspiring, and I hope that you're able to put pressure on the UK government, especially with any with their kind of COP26 preparations, and hopefully it will make the event more inclusive, and will make future climate action more inclusive, and we can work hard to put gender inequality and other social issues kind of on the agenda. Thank you so much. Bye bye.